Tune in to the Real Estate Roundup with the River Counties Association of Realtors. Join us every Saturday at 8:30 a.m. on the Mix 104.1 as we explore the latest in real estate. Whether you're buying, selling, or just love real estate, don't miss our expert advice and exclusive insights. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's explore the dynamic world of real estate in our vibrant River Counties community. Catch Real Estate Roundup and make your property dreams a reality. Welcome to the River County Association of Realtors Real Estate Roundup. And we have some great information today for you if you're a buyer. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and have a listen to our special guest once again, Lisa Calfee. Welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here again.
Yeah, nice and hot outside now. So
yes, always look forward to being here and sharing useful information with our listeners and all the latest in real estate.
Great. And as we mentioned, we're going to talk about buyers here and what tips and ideas. So please take a listen and let's get this going. So I'm a buyer. I'm out there looking for property. I start calling you, talking to you. What should I be on the lookout for when I'm viewing these properties in person? And just kind of give me the whole lowdown of what needs to be done.
Absolutely. So, in Tennessee and in Georgia, it's really kind of a buyer beware type of situation where you have to do all of your own diligence when you are placing an offer on a property. After you get it under contract, you'll have that period of time to uncover anything that you want to know about that property.
Okay.
That's your responsibility as the buyer. So if I'm a seller and I say this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and it is 1,100 square feet, well, I'm telling you what I believe to be true, but you can't really hold me to that because it is the buyer that has to be the one to find out for sure. Is it in that specific school district? Is this really 0.70 acres? Or, so all that burden does fall to the buyer to really check all those things out. So one of the things that is semi-common in our area, depending on where you're looking, is it in a flood zone? That is, you may look at a property and think, oh my gosh, this house is up high. How could it ever be in a flood zone? Well, It could be. Right. That we don't determine those flood zones. Local authorities don't determine those flood zones. That is determined federally by FEMA.
Okay.
They, every few years, update their flood maps. And those flood zones are determined based on, is it a 100-year possibility of a flood? Is it a 500-year possibility of a flood? In recent years, we know that what happened in North Carolina last year with all of the flooding, they would never have had flood insurance because they would have never dreamt that they would have experienced a flood in the places that they did.
Sure.
And some of those were up high. And the water just came flowing down at such a rate that now they have a home that has just disappeared, basically. So flood zones, that area may be a prime area that's going to be redetermined for flood zones in the future. So where it may not have had flood insurance as a requirement in the past, it may in the future. So flood zones are something to really check out. Now, when you're working with a real estate professional, such as myself, I'm going to go online and I'm going to send you the link as well. And I'm going to look and see if that sits in a flood zone and what flood zone it sits in, because we've got different categories of flood zones. If it says it's minimal, then the lender is not going to require you to hold flood insurance. If it says that it's anything beyond minimal, then there is a good chance that it is going to require flood insurance. And we can look on the FEMA website. We can see how that flood area affects the home, because sometimes, let's say you're near a creek. And it's in the back of the property. And the property shows that it's in a high, moderate, and minimum flood zone. It's got all three on the land. Yeah. And that could be because down by the water, that's considered a flood zone. Sure. But where the house sits, it may not be. But let's say that the right corner of the house happens to be in the moderate. Well, it's going to be up to the lender whether or not they're going to require you to have flood insurance.
Okay.
And flood insurance can obviously cost you money, affect your payment. So you've got to know that going in when you make an offer and get quotes really quickly to see if it's going to be something that's going to throw your payment too high and then all of a sudden your debt to income ratios are thrown out of whack for that reason. And so we have to look at those things and see where we're at. And that's one of the things that is the buyer's responsibility to know that. It's not really that the seller even has to disclose to you whether or not, because and here's the thing, and this is what I always let my buyers know. Just because a seller tells you that they don't have flood insurance doesn't mean that it's not required, because if they don't have a loan on the property, then maybe it was just their choice not to have flood insurance. And then all of a sudden here comes a torrential rain like, we've had in the last few years, some unexpected torrential rains, and then the house floods, and then you weren't covered for that. And so you don't want to take the seller's word for that, because there also is a chance it could have been moved into a flood zone after they got their loan and they didn't really realize it, so they don't have flood insurance. Okay. So there's just a lot of things to do with where the property sits and whether or not it's in that flood zone that you need to know. One of the other things that's always good to know is there a homeowners association? And if I'm selling a property and my buyer's looking at it and there is a homeowners association, I'm going to want to get my buyer a copy of those covenants and restrictions before we're done with our inspection period, because I'm a dog lover, right? I've got 3 dogs at home. I cannot live anywhere that I cannot have a fence. Right. Now, the type of fence, I've got a big dog, and, if he were a jumper, I'd need it to be higher than 3 feet, because then there'd be no point in having the fence, right? And so, and there also are some HOA restrictions that may limit the number of animals that you can have. So I think it's very important that you are able to read those restrictions and decide for yourself, is this something I can live with? Or is this way too strict for me and my lifestyle, and it's not the neighborhood for me? And so that's what you're going to have to look at as well, is just be sure that you know what's going on with the community that you're looking at, that it's going to suit your family and your lifestyle and not be too overly strict for you. Maybe you're somebody that really likes that strict, enforcement, because, you want to ensure that everybody's yards are being taken care of or what have you. Right. So that's something to really investigate as well.
But you're going to help them with all of that and help uncover what you need to uncover. And like you mentioned, and I think people probably don't realize that with flood zones, you can be put with 2 or 3 different types of flood zones on your property. A lot of people think it's like one and done and that's it. But it's a great point you bring up, that the corner of the house just touches that, and now the lender's got to look at that, so it snowballs from there into other things that, not necessarily that you're not going to have insurance. You might need it now. And it's possible probably too that one lender might say, yeah, you need it, and the other one might say no, right?
I think it's going to be, they do what's called a flood certification letter, and it's going to be whether or not they're going to require, because the lender's the one taking the risk. Right. So they're the one coming to the table with the money. They're loaning you the $300,000 to buy the house. They want to protect their investment. Yep. And so they're the ones that are going to make that determination. And then a quote can be done in quickly. You can actually get a quote from FEMA's website, because they do have FEMA-backed flood insurance, and you can get a quote directly from their website, or you can do it from your local insurance agent. And so any of those can help you with that. And, that's another point. When you are in the process of buying, you need to go ahead and get a insurance quote on that house, because, when they do that insurance quote for you, they can pull up a history on the house, and they can see if there's been a lot of, activity. Yeah. Well, hey, what if the house had burned? Right. And it wasn't disclosed? You're going to find that out from that insurance quote, because that's going to be stuck to that house. Interestingly enough, I showed a house years ago, first one I've ever done we found this, but the family that was looking at it, there was a disclosure in our system that showed that this house had actually been producing a methamphetamine. And so the sheriff's department is required, when they have made an arrest and it has been known that it has been, because it's a very toxic substance, that letter was attached to the deed forever. Wow. And so they can sell the house, but it has to have all of these different tests done on it for the toxicity and all this other stuff. And so that was the first and only time I've ever seen that. But that was a lesson for me to learn that, that is something that can be found during a search of a deed if there was something attached to it. Now, that's the only thing, because of it being so toxic, that is attached to the deed. But as a buyer, obviously, you would want to know those things.
Yeah, I would.
And I'm glad that buyer said, no, this is not the house for me.
Right.
Because I'm not sure I would feel safe with myself or my family in a home where there could be some toxic, residue left over. But there are all kinds of things like that.
And trying to resell it down the road too, you might run into a bigger problem.
And that's also something to think about when it comes to, like, even if it's a flood zone, it may be more difficult to sell in the future. So you got to really think about that whenever you're looking at, and it may be the perfect house for you, and that may be your forever home. You may not even worry about that, and that's fine. Right. Those houses are sellable, they are buyable, and sometimes they're in a place where they just have to have that, attached to it because of its location, but it may have not flooded in the last 100 years for real, because it's a 100-year flood zone. Yep. But you need to know that, that is going to deter some folks from even considering it. And I just had one I showed to a buyer last week, and the quote for the flood insurance, it was very reasonable. Yeah. And it was not going to make but like a $70 a month difference in their payment. And it was just literally a small portion of the house that was in it, because there was a creek at the back of the property, and it was 3 acres. Right. Yeah. And so they were willing to move forward with that because it was not the whole entire home that was sitting in it, and the price of it was going to be reasonable, and it was going to work for them. And so it's really a personal decision then. Yeah,
it's not to necessarily be scared off. It's to investigate.
Yes.
Think about it, decide on it, and then move forward, but not always just panic over it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's some great advice too, because a lot of people don't realize those are things as a buyer you need to do. You do a home inspection, you think that's it, but there's the other steps that you need to do that you just talked about.
Absolutely. So, you got to do your diligence. And, we don't talk much about getting surveys because we assume that if it's in a neighborhood, that's not necessary. Right. And chances are, if it's in a neighborhood, there's a plat that's been recorded with the county that shows what the builder recorded and where the property lines would be. And you may use that if you're putting a fence up and you really need to know and all that good stuff. If it is not in a platted subdivision, that's something to really think about. Do I need to get a survey? Do I need to make sure where these property lines are if there hasn't been a survey done at all in recent years? And maybe they subdivided it. Maybe it was a large tract and they said, I think we'll sell this 5 acres off. Right. And they didn't do a survey. They just kind of plotted it out and said, here's what I'm selling. We've got to make sure that property lines are represented, and it's not the burden of the seller, unfortunately, because we've got to make sure as a buyer that we've looked at what we need to look at to make sure that we can prove or disprove where those property lines are.
Yeah, and that's great advice. And give our audience your contact information here as we're in the middle of our program, so they know how to reach out to you, and phone numbers, emails.
Yes, Lisa Calfee with the Source Real Estate Group, serving North Georgia and all of the Chattanooga, Cleveland area. And my number is 423-802-0875. And certainly you can check me out on all my social media as well, Lisa Padgett Calfee. Okay.
And you're bringing them great information, and I know you'll take really good care of them. So reach out to her. So let's talk a little bit about nowadays. There's one scam after another. It just does not stop, no matter what business it is. But let's talk about a couple of things, because there's different types of scams in our business. So let's talk about rental scams first. What should somebody be aware of, and what are the scammers trying to come away with here?
So I always tell people, now as a real estate agent, we can help you find a rental. Okay. And then you can always look yourself. Sure. If you're looking on one of the big websites like Zillow, they have to go through some steps to put their rental on there. So Zillow's doing a little bit of back end on there, and then they have an application process that they can use through Zillow, and it's all done right there. I would always make sure that I am driving by the house before I pay any money to anybody for an application fee. What their scam is, they're getting an application fee from you. Sure. Okay. And they sometimes will go as far as to get a deposit from you before they even let you see the house. Ooh. And so I've had houses listed for sale. There's been a for sale sign in the yard. They see the pictures online, the scammers do, and then they duplicate it, put it on Facebook Marketplace, and offer it for rent. Well, they don't even have it's not theirs. They can't rent it. Right. But what they're doing is they're getting their hook is, yes, I have to get you to apply first, and then I have to run a background check. And so they charge you a fee. You Venmo them the money, right. and then you're out that money because they were a scammer from the get-go. Yeah. And so before you're paying anybody anything, you need to drive by that property and you need to check that property out. An easy way to see if the person that is claiming to have it as a rental is right. who they say they are. Anybody can go on to every county has their own website where they have Register of Deeds, and you can see whose name is on that property.
Right. That's all public knowledge.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So if Jane Doe is advertising it for lease, right. and Jane Doe is not the one that looks like they're the owner on the county records, then that should be your first red flag. And there are lots of rental management companies that lease, and it's not to say that you can't go through an individual owner and do quite fine. You just need to really investigate that before you send anybody any money, okay. because that is a huge scam, and it's mostly Facebook Marketplace, because I don't think anybody uses Craigslist anymore, but it used to be Craigslist, and now marketplaces where people are really trying to hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, and people get vulnerable and they think this is a great deal. And if it's too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true.
Absolutely. And that's what they do. Yeah, they offer it up too good to be true. Right. We'll take all your pets. You can have it for $1,000 a month and no deposit. Well, that's probably not a likely scenario. Rational. Yes.
And like you said, you have the house listed for sale, and unbeknownst to you and the sellers, their house is now out there as a rental. And nobody knows that.
That's right. And I've had people call me from my sign because they've done the drive-by and they've said, "Is this for lease?" I said, "No, it's not. Thank you for letting me know." Right. All I can do is go online, find that Facebook Marketplace post, and report it. Doesn't mean it's going to be taken down. Right. But that's a big one, and I think people lose a lot of money. And when you're trying to rent and you're saving up for first and last month's rent, it's a lot of money to lose $50 a pop for somebody wanting you to apply. So just being aware of that. Yeah,
and plus then you're giving them all your personal information too on that application and everything. So now they've got all that.
And that's the other thing they're doing. They're trying to get your personal information and then do other things with it.
Right. So beware. And like you said, do your due diligence. Go drive the property. And if you're not in the area, ask somebody that you know in the area to go drive by it to verify it for you. So the other type of scams too, aside from rentals, which is sad, but land scams. We're starting to see that pop up more. So how are these scammers, targeting potential victims for this, and what are they doing with it? What should you be aware of?
It's so interesting, the things people come up with and spend time working on when they could just do all of that.
Get a good job.
Really, if you're that intelligent that you can make up all this stuff, go get a job and use that for better things. Right. Yeah. So vacant land. If you own vacant land, you've got a lot over here at 123 Main Street. You've had it for years. Right. You probably get letters in the mail, people saying, "Hey, I'd like to sell this for you," or "I'd like to buy this from you." Well, people are seeking out empty land, and it's easy for them to see it, and they don't even have to live here and drive by it to see it, because if they go into the tax records, they can see what's called unimproved land, right?
Sure. Yep.
And so what they do is they reach out. They can either put a for sale by owner online on any website that allows that. Right. They could put it on Facebook Marketplace, all these other things. I think you got to really be careful of Facebook and somebody saying that they're selling some land. Right. Because again, that person, they get even more a little bit sophisticated with this, and they say they're that person because they know people are going to go in and see, is that the name on the tax records? So they're posing to be that person, and then they're going as far as to tell the person, go ahead, you can go look at the land, you can go walk it, blah blah blah, and then we're going to do a contract together. And then you're going to send me earnest money, and I'll hold that earnest money, and you might send them $1,000, and then they bolt because they didn't own the property. They didn't have the ability to sell it. So they're getting money that way. Some of them are taking it all the way to the closing table.
Oh, wow.
and trying to get it to where it's closed. Now, a title company is going to require that they bring their ID in and all that. So they're not getting that far. But what they try to do is say, well, I'm not going to be present, so I need to do it. I need you to mail it to me and all that. And I don't think they've gotten as far as to getting away with that. Okay. But what you want to do is, number one, as agents, we are getting these notifications constantly through organizations like River County's Association of Realtors that are sending us, anytime they're made aware of a land scam, you all are sending emails out to all of the licensed agents to say, hey, this is the person's name, and they're trying to sell this property at 123 Main Street. Doesn't belong to them. So we're constantly abreast of these things. If you're using a licensed agent, and some people don't realize, if you found something for sale by owner, you can still have an agent represent you. Right. You can pay a fee to that agent, and that agent can represent you. I'm happy to do that and make sure that your interests are being protected. Okay. That is one really good way to make sure that you're not getting scammed, is to have a licensed agent that's going to be doing that due diligence. We kind of know what we're looking for because it's become common. And then if you've got somebody helping you with that, they're not going to let you send money directly to the seller. Yeah. We're going to make sure that the title company that has a attorney on staff is the one holding all money. Yep. That way it's not going to be willy-nilly released to a seller that could be frauding you. And so when you've got that person on your side that's helping you, you can help avoid some of those scams. But these people are out here trying to sell land that they don't own, and they're trying to get money from a unknowing buyer that says, wow, this is great. This is exactly what I've been looking for. The price is great. La, la, la. Yep. I can do this without having to pay any real estate fees. Well, you didn't pay real estate fees, but you just lost a bunch of money. Right. And so that's the thing. We are trained to be able to help you through the process and protect you so that this doesn't happen to you. Right. So it's kind of like going to the doctor and saying, you know what, I just really want to see the nurse. We love nurses. Right. Nurses are great. Yes, they are. But I just want to see the nurse. I don't really want to see the doctor today. Like, I have a broken arm, but I think the nurse can handle it. Because that doctor went through that additional training. They are trained to reset your arm and to do what they need to do to make sure, because they went to 8+ years of school. And so we are trained in our field to know what to look for, to protect buyers, and to make sure that we get you to the closing table and that there's nothing that we haven't tried to uncover.
Well, and you have your relationships with title companies day in and day out, where as a homeowner, buyer, once every 5 years, 20 years maybe, that you deal with a title company. And I feel probably a lot of people don't realize what a title company actually does. Yes. But you can help connect all of that with them because you have your relationships with those title companies.
Well, and as an agent, I always see it as I am over here anticipating problems before they come up. Right. I am anticipating, and I am putting up a shield to say, all right, we're going to avoid this because we're going to do this first. Or if we have something that comes up, I have experienced that most likely before, and I know how to redirect it. I know how to come up with a solution. I know how to prevent it from being an issue that we can't overcome. Right. And so we're problem solvers. I'm a problem solver in this situation where I'm representing my buyer or my seller, and I'm over here solving fires, putting out fires, solving problems in every transaction. And some of them you may not even be aware of ever even came up because I put it out so fast you didn't even have to know. Right. Yeah. And then, like you said, establish relationships with home inspectors, with people that I trust that have done a good job in the past for my clients. I'm not going to go out and say, hey, let's use, here are a few that I like that have done a great job for my past clients. I'm not going to give them the name of someone that I've had a client be upset with. Sure. Because I want my clients to be happy, and that's my name that's going out there when I endorse someone else. Yep. And the title companies, they're doing all their behind the scenes legal checks with the deed and with everything to be sure that no one ends up in an issue. And so you've got a team of professionals when you you hire an agent, you've got a team of professionals that are going to be back behind the scenes making sure that everything is good, so that when you make this purchase that you're not having regret that, oh my gosh, what did I do? Now I've got all these issues.
Well, you need clear title, because all of a sudden, if the title company misses that, if they miss it, you're protected in that sense too, because they did their search. But a lot of people don't realize, title work is boring, right? Because it's not very exciting, but it's one of the most important things, if not the most important of the whole transaction.
And contracts.
Yes.
So a contract is legal written on a napkin.
Yeah.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it going to protect you? Probably not.
Right.
You can wipe your face with it, but you're not going to get any protection. And the state of Tennessee and the state of Georgia has a whole team of attorneys. They know the legal. We don't.
Yeah.
And they have developed the forms for each state that every licensed agent uses that have all those built-in things to protect the buyer and or the seller. And so that when you're using a licensed agent and you get access to those forms that they're going to be completing for you, that's where you're getting all of that protection from, is those contract forms. Because if you've got to go to court and you had a contract on a napkin and it just said, John Doe is going to sell this property to Susie Ann for $70,000 and we're going to close on this date. That's all you've agreed to.
Right.
There's nothing else in there. It didn't say they had to give you a clear title. It didn't say that they had to do anything.
You give me the money and here you go.
Here you go. And so used to, things were firm on a handshake.
Yeah.
But we live in a world where there's a legal route you can take for everything, and we all know that there's plenty of attorneys that are ready to sue. So you've got to have that protection and coverage of having a real estate professional like myself being right there with you through this process. I don't know too many purchases in my lifetime I'm going to make for the amount that I'm going to pay for a home.
Right. Yeah.
There's not much out there that I would pay that kind of money for. And I definitely want to cover my bases. I want that protection.
It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest transaction you do in your life.
Absolutely.
A car obviously is not the same value of a house, and it's significant,
That's right.
You've given some great ideas here with the buyers. Your other shows that you've done have been terrific. So people go on mixedtv.tv on YouTube and just type in your name, type in River Counties. You'll see all the shows that you've done. You brought some great information to our audience here over the last number of months, and we really appreciate that.
Well, I enjoy doing it. I mean, I'm a teacher at heart. I love to teach people about different topics, and this is an important one for us in financial decisions and in life decisions, and I think we need to have knowledge going into it, and when you're more informed, you make better decisions.
And get a professional like yourself to
absolutely
help protect you. And give everybody your contact information as we wrap up here, please.
All right. Lisa Calfee with the Source Real Estate Group, 423-802-0875. Shoot me an email as well, lisasellschattanooga@gmail.com.
And you cover all the areas, so just reach out to you.
Absolutely. Love to help you.
Lisa, as always, we appreciate it. You got great information. Again, go to mixedtv.tv to look up Lisa's shows, River Counties. You'll see all the different topics, and just reach out to her. She's got it all going on. So we really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Do you imagine a career with flexibility and limitless income potential? It's possible by becoming a Realtor. The River Counties Association of Realtors, located right here in Cleveland, Tennessee, is ready to help you unlock your potential. We're your go-to resource for guiding you to obtain your Tennessee real estate license. We're more than just realtors. We're a vital part of our community. Partnering with local charities, we work tirelessly to make a difference. Join the River Counties Association of Realtors today, where your career can thrive and community can too. Visit rivercounties.com or call 423-476-5912. Your new path awaits.